Hey everyone, it's Desiree. If you remember, there was a previous video that I had posted, and I'll link it up to the right or to the left, or it'll be somewhere, definitely down below in the video description, where I had shown my computer had gone down and I was able to play around in my room and create a junk journal. And when I showed that video, I had asked the question if everyone would, if they were interested in seeing how they could make their own, the supplies you would need, and just go through a process to show different components, you know, from basic supplies that you could use to showing different aspects of what was done in this. And it was definitely unanimous that people were interested. So we are going to start this process, these series of videos. I'm not quite sure how many I'll have. I believe so far I'm up to 11 different areas that we can go. But for this one, I just wanted to start with things that you would need, the basic supplies. You know, junk journals have that term junk in it, and there are, whether you are a paper crafter, you already have 90% of what you need to create one of these. You can keep it as basic as you want, you can get as intricate as you want. So first off, the main thing that you're going to need is paper. So again, if you are that paper crafter, if you are a paper hoarder like I am with the pattern paper, then by all means that can definitely be part of your journal. You'll actually develop what your style is, what you're looking for it to be, with a theme, if you want to go into the vintage style. And again, for it to be a vintage journal, for me, your main component besides your paper, of course, is vintage photo ink. Now, it can be the ink or it can be the oxide ink. So you definitely want to have that. You definitely need to have a glue. So I am a fan of the Art Glitter Glue, and also the Beacon, either 3-in-1 or Fabri-Tac. Those are the two glues that I use. You do want to make sure that you have a glue that has minimal a water content to it. So those are the two things. Now, the other ink that I use a lot as well is the Potting Soil archival ink. You know, again, your distress inks or your oxide inks, they are reactive with water, where this one is not. So those three components: paper, ink to give you the vintage look if that's what you're looking for. It's not necessary though. And then of course something to glue it together. Now, let me real quick say too, I know I'm already, you know, a few minutes in. This is going to be a long Gabby. I'm doing this right into the video. There's not going to be a voiceover, so forgive me if you hear things in the background, or things of that nature, but we'll try to keep it as small as we can. So again, this is the one that I showed. You can see I've got pattern papers. I use copy paper. I use drawing papers. You know, it's anything that you're looking for. So let's talk about the different papers that you can use, where you can get them, how easily they can be resourced if you don't already have, or if you're just starting out. So one of the things that I did was I went to my local Goodwill, and I had found some books, and I found a great series by William Faulkner. He is one of my favorites. And what's great is I paid $1.97 for each of the books that I had found. And again, you can see that they're, you know, they're not the size of the journal that I have, they do have the correct height. I usually make my journals to be what we refer to as a travel notebook size. So you're looking at 8.5 by 4 by 5.5, because this piece is folded over, or it can be the 4.25. So I do trim that down, but that's usually my measurements once it's folded. So 4.25 to 4.5 to 8.5. So as I said, this definitely has the height. I always struggle with getting to have this, let's say if these are the folded pages, to come out that way. So if I do trim them out, I do break into the spine, I will create a hinge. So, and I'll get into that. Another book that I had found, and again, I only paid $1.97 US dollars here, is the A Thesaurus of Words and Phrases. So I think this is great as well. And you can see these are already vintagey, you know, looking. They're aged papers. They're not white. They're very aged around the edges, and so forth. Now again, if I want my words to sit this way, I will create the hinge, or you can pull this out and you can have it sitting in your book going this way, and you would just fold it here. So it would be a smaller page that sits in there. So I have those. Sorry for that noise, because I am on my glass mat here. And then I found, this was one of my big finds. It's huge, and what's great is this is the World Book Encyclopedia, and it's a dictionary, and it's only the L to Z, which is fine. But you can see how big these pages are. Again, they are already vintaged, so meaning they have that aged look around the edges. They are lighter in the center. And again, when I pull this out, this will fit just fine going in my books this way. Again, it's okay that your words are kind of off to the side. Again, that adds to the charm of your journal. So I leave these pages alone. And what I mean by that is, we see a lot of times that the pages, you can either coffee stain them or tea stain them. I am a coffee drinker, so mine are coffee, and I will be honest, it took me forever to get to that point, to do that process where either you let them dry on their own or you put them in the oven. So we'll also get into that in a little bit as well. So let me move these out of my way. So one of the other things that I had found, and what an option is, you could find that one book where you absolutely love the images, you love some of the components that are in there, and you don't want to lose them. So what I've done is I've taken some books. There was a series that I found on florals and trees and herbs, those types of images, and you can see they're illustrations and they're absolutely gorgeous. I don't know if I'll ever find these books again, so I've taken those pages out, and what I have the ability to do, if you have access to a printer, you can copy these. So you'll always have your originals and you'll just have the copy image, because this here cut out would make a great journaling card or a card for inside of your journal. You can also resize this, so you can make them different sizes to fit, whether it's a tag or a journaling card. You can enlarge them. So you do have that flexibility if you have a printing company near you, or if you should have your own, you can actually do that as well. So you can see I have all of these beautiful images, and then I have, you know, what the description is too, that you can incorporate into your journals as well. Again, found those at my local Goodwill, and those are the only types of books that I will use in my journals for text, or images. So it's a great resource if you have that near you. So very minimal costs that you would have to incur with that. Now, when it comes to my outside, I always use craft cardstock. I get this at my local Michael's that's near me. And it's just literally craft. This is the Recollections version. I really like their version. I find it to be very thick. Even though they say it's 65 pounds, I do strengthen it because I will line it with some pattern paper. And so around it, just to give it a little bit more strength. So my covers are always, I'm always using this as it is. I just ink around the edges to give that vintage look. Now, as I said, for some of my pages, such as this is actually a piece of drawing paper, Skechers, the toned tan, paper that you can draw on. You can see I have this hinge here that I created because, again, it wasn't big enough that I could fold it in half. So what I use for that, it is the best thing. You can get it at your local dollar store. You can get a huge pack at your grocery store, and it's simply a brown paper bag. You can cut into this, get it to the size that you're looking for, and then I just double layer. So this is a wonderful, it gives you that sound, because when we coffee dye or tea dye, we like to have that noise, and this gives that to you. So I'm going to make that noise there of the crinkleness. I call it the crinkleness. Let's go with that. So I use this to make hinges, and you can also use this as pages in your junk journal as well. So again, you're not limited. You can write on this, you can draw on it, and whatever it is that you're looking for. Now, we've seen so many times that we can coffee dye our papers, or tea dye. So whichever way you want to go with that. So I did finally break down. I avoided this for an extremely long time. I'll be honest. This is a process. This is a very long process. And for me, for a while, it was a very concerning process because, again, we're cooking paper in our oven. That just doesn't, I don't know, it's very odd. But I finally gave in. So I took a day, and the paper that I'm using when I do this is just regular copying paper. I go to my local office supply store, and I find the cheapest ream that you can purchase. Just one of those reams, I pay like $4 US for this ream, 500 sheets, and that is what I will use. Now, you can see here, I have different effects when it comes to that. So these here are either, I use a spray bottle. I don't soak them in the pan. I don't fill up a pan, pour in my coffee for these. I either use a spray bottle and spray my sheets. So now you can see, I don't know if it's pretty light, but you can see the white areas. You can see where the coffee is. You can see, and I only do one side. So I have a darker side here and a lighter shade here. And it just gives you a different effect. So you have more splatters on this side than you do because the fibers of the paper will pick it up, but give you that difference when it comes to that. So this is through a spray bottle. This here is where I used a paintbrush. So it looks like I've got paintbrush marks going across my paper. Again, darker on one side, lighter on the other. I do let the water pool, let it be thick when I put it down. The sheets that I use when I put it into my oven are tinfoil sheets for like cookies and cakes and brownies and stuff like that I get at my local dollar store. So these, since these are larger, are actually the big cookie sheets, the aluminum foil sheets. Pans, let me be clear, pans, I'm not lining my oven with tinfoil. and they have no markings in the tin, so they are flat. But the water, the coffee water will actually pool sometimes, but it's less when you use a brush. This here is more spraying, so it's a little bit more solid of a coverage. And again, I have a darker side compared to a lighter side. So I have those two differences when I'm going into my journal. Now for this one here, what I did was I sprayed towards the bottom so I get this variegated look. So my top is a little bit lighter and the bottom is a little darker. So it just gives you that variegated look. So it's just different, that can sit in your journal. Again, these are not soaked in the pan. This one, however, this is some paper that I just happened to find in the house. It looks like it's accounting grid paper or lined paper. These are placed in the pan, and you can tell because of the spots that I have. Again, when you pull it out of the pan, it's very wet, and when you lay it down, you get these bubbles, which is really cool before you put it in your oven, and they actually hold. So one side of this paper has lined. I couldn't tell you where I got it, just found it in the house. And then the other side is plain. So, and you can tell these are a little bit more crinkly than these, because not as much is going on to those papers. So you can have fun if this is what you want to do. You do not have to do the tea or the coffee. You can just ink around the edges of your paper using your inks and your tools to create that look. You don't have to do the soaking. Again, I held off for an extremely long time. Now, I do have tags. I have lots of shipping tags. So these were actually soaked in the paper. So I can use these as accents. I can use these tags direct. One side has this plastic part. That's okay. I would cover this with paper to line it, just to give it more stability. But you can see how much difference that I get because of the coffee. Yes, I drink very strong coffee. These, I had purchased these a while ago, but again, you don't have to purchase these, okay? But I just kept them soaked. So very dark on one side, lighter on the other. So I have those. I can cut those up. These here, again, same thing. They are dipped into it. And these are actually the card bases that you can purchase automatically in your local craft stores. Or you can create your own if you have tons of cardstock. Just cut them down to your standard A2 size card base and then place them in. So I've got this really dark side and splatters, and then I have this lighter side, and I would actually fold these up. I use these for my centers in the center of my signature, and then I glue up the sides. So now I've created a pocket if I want to hide my ties in the center of my journal, which you can see here. That's what this is. This is the center of my signature, so I've hidden the two tassels and just created a pocket out of that. Again, basic supplies here. What you can use. If you want to keep this white, you can just keep this white as well and just ink around the edges. You don't have to do the tea staining. It is a process, okay? Now here, this is the same thing, but you can see these marks that have been embedded, and that's because the tins that I'm using that I get from my local dollar store have this raised area in there. I find that really unique. I can pick up those designs in the tins that I'm using to get those marks. So that's something else that you can use to create these different images and textures within your papers if you're doing the dyeing. Now, also know you don't have to use coffee or tea. You can also use water, and if you have re-inkers, because you are that paper crafter, you can put a few drops in there, or food colorings to make vibrant pieces of paper with color. You can do that as well, so that's an option. I also was very fortunate to find a location that had music sheets. I do like to put music sheets in my journals as well. So these are not coffee stained. I don't dye these. I keep them the way they are. They're already aged. And I just cut these down to size and include them. And I'm usually cutting right down here along this edge to get rid of that. And then it's sitting in my journal going this way, and I can just fold it. And I usually do tear and give that raw edge of the paper. I like tearing paper. It's very methodic for me, very therapeutic to tear paper. So this is another option. Again, I found these at a local thrift store. Found a huge stack. It was like this thick for like $5. So it was a very exciting moment for me. So it's really funny. But maybe you don't want to go to your local Goodwill, or maybe you just have all of these supplies and you just don't know what to do with them. Your other options and things that I add is, for some reason, I have tons of this tracing pads from Artist Loft. Again, my local Michael's store. Now again, these were on sale. I must have really thought it was a good sale. I got 2 of these for like $5. Bought a ton of them. But you can also put your tracing paper in there. It's a different texture of paper. You can make envelopes out of these. You can make pockets out of these. Just so much that you can do. So I do use these as well. I just tear it out and I cut it down and then fold it in half to add just a couple sheets within the journal. So this is also an option for you as well. But again, maybe you're that paper crafter and you are a paper hoarder and you just love paper and you want to create one of these and you just want to use that up and have all of the mixes of your paper. You can. They sell, you probably have, these are paper pads, not cardstock pads, but paper pads. And these have beautiful, beautiful vintage papers. Again, the one side is white so people can journal on that. And then here you have this texture and these prints, and you can cut them in half and have different sizes in your journals. Again, everything doesn't have to be the correct size, the height and the width. You can have these different layers that go in to your signature, and that's what this is called. And again, we'll get into that further, but you can have so much fun with these. See, that looks familiar. That's my lining in here that I used. I just used a section of it, or this you could use and put it on the outside and use it as your cover. So many options. And again, this here, your paper pads usually have 180 sheets. So think of all that, but think of your journal just filled with all of these pages. It would be absolutely beautiful. And again, you don't have to coffee or tea stain, but you can when it comes to these after they're cut down. Maybe you have a lot of 6x6 paper pads that are a thicker cardstock, not necessarily paper. This is a little thicker. These are great to make tags and embellishment with your paper clips. Here, I have some here for little embellishments or accents. Again, you can cut these up. This you can cut a strip and just add it as an accent to a page at the bottom. So again, cutting and recreating. You have a white side here. Sometimes they have pieces that you can actually cut out for your own ephemera that goes into your sheets. It's the beauty of paper. It can be cut, it can be shredded, it can be torn, it can be dyed, inked, stamped, formed, anything that you want. So 9 out of 10, you have all of these items. You can use items that are in your home as well. Regular envelopes, maybe you have a ton of those, or you can go to your local dollar store and get envelopes there and create different types of pockets. And again, we will get into that. One of the things that I did have always trouble finding were maps and texts and ledgers. So this is an option. This has 180 sheets. This is paper, but there's all kinds of texts and there's different ephemera that you can automatically cut up. There's backgrounds that are here. There's maps and all of this. So this is very universal and very much cost effective. I found mine on Amazon. So again, just the general. You can also use glassine sheets if you have someone that just happens to have these. I was fortunate. Someone was going through their home and they found this whole box of these 12 by 12. They must have had a bakery or a food or a catering company, and I scarfed these up. I make envelopes out of these and so forth. You can purchase these, but again, you don't have to purchase so much when it comes to making your junk journals. So keep that in mind. These are just the basic supplies when it comes to what you can use in your junk journals. Again, you can see regular books for the text. I use a lot of the craft cardstock as well. You can see I ink around. But it's just all kinds of different things that you probably already have in your home. And what you already have, especially if you're that paper crafter and you're looking for something a little different to make. So if you start digging around, start gathering all of that. And again, it can be anything. As I said, at my local dollar store, I also get, and I'm looking for it here, I also get boxes, this 80 envelopes. Now these are the smaller size, so these are 6 3/4 inch by 3 5/8. These envelopes, so these can be used as well. And again, you can cover these up with your cardstock to make pockets and tucks and flips. I will link to those that have inspired me very recently. So Tracy Fox, Wendy's Junk Journal Adventures, and I'm sure I'm saying these names wrong, Attic Lane, but something as simple as this, and a lot of your supplies you can get from your local dollar store. If you do say, oh, I want to buy something, you can go there. So I hope this gets you thinking as we continue through what I'm going to call this journey when it comes to making a junk journal, and what you can do, what you don't have to do. Just because I have sewn lines here, it doesn't mean you have to sew. You can just draw these lines, and we will get all into that. So again, if you have questions, if you're curious about something, make sure you leave those down below, and I will get back to you. I will try to link to some of the areas where I did buy some of my supplies. I'll have those linked below. I don't know if I'll have too many though, because again, let's use what we have. But when it comes to inks and so forth, those will be linked. If I can find the pads that I had shown, I'll link those as well. But I'll also give you ideas for Goodwills and everything else down there also. So I want to welcome you to this wonderful journey that we're going to go through. Thank you so much though for excuse me, spending this little bit of time with me. Please, I would love for you to subscribe, be part of my group here. Make sure you ring the bell, because you don't want to miss this series and the next one that comes out. Not sure if it'll be weekly or if it'll be on every other week or a monthly, but they will come out. This is part 1. Look out for part 2. I hope everyone's having a great day. And always remember though, you gotta be creative. Take care.